Hello friends, welcome back. Today I will take you to the new topic which is CSS3. In this lesson you will learn multiple things which is related to CSS3, CSS and some more history about the CSS. Let's go through it. Let's understand what is all the content we are going to cover in this topic. One, which is what is CSS? Then we will learn about CSS, some history about CSS, syntax and rules about CSS, type of CSS, then we'll jump to CSS3 introduction, then we'll go to CSS properties with some examples, then we'll understand some advantages of CSS3, some features of CSS3, then we'll understand the difference between CSS and the CSS3. Let's go then. Now see on the screen like what is CSS? Now for this question everyone has a different answers. But in this, we'll see the main standard what CSS stands for. Like everyone know, like CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Like let's understand what cascading means. Refers to the procedure that determines which styles will apply to a certain sections if you have more than one style rule. It means if you have multiple style rules or more than one style rules, then you can apply your own style to sessions or to certain sections. Then we'll see what style. In this, you learn like what style, how you want a certain part of your page to look. You can set things like color, margin, font, etc. for things like table, paragraph, and headings. So you can create your own styles or you can apply the styles to the mentioned elements or to the tags. Now the third comes which is a style. This excuse me. It is sheets. If the sheets are like templates or a set of rules for determining how the web page will look. Like like if the web page means like whatever you see on the Internet Explorer, once you type an address into the Internet Explorer, the page appears. The page whatever you see on a web page has been used multiple CSS. Like each elements or each text you see with the aligned, proper aligned, the images are aligned, the entire content on the page has been aligned. So with the help of the CSS, we can do so. In standard language, like CSS is style sheet language, is used to describe the presentation of a document written in HTML or XML. Like everyone know, like you cannot just write the CSS and you can see the presentation on your web page. To do so, you need something a language which is like HTML or XML. With the help of these two languages or with the help of these languages, you can add a CSS. With the help of the CSS, you can decorate or you can give good properties or you can present the entire content onto the web page. Moving next, let's understand about the CSS. Like like the HTML has been invented was the Tim Berners-Lee in 1994. Like Hakan Young Lee proposed the concept of CSS while working with him. Next, the first introduction of CSS was published in late 1996, offering support for font properties, colors for text and backgrounds, as well as alignment of text, images, tables, and other web elements. Next, the earliest CSS3 drafts were published in June 1999. CSS3 is divided into several separate documents called modules. So here now we'll learn about some history of CSS before moving to CSS3. If you see on the screen, CSS1 was enabled user to set font size, align text like center, left or right, to set body margins, and apply background and foreground color to page elements. It was done in 1996. Next, later on, in 1998, CSS2 was introduced, including features such as design styles for different output devices such as print media and some devices, and controlling the appearance and behaviors of browser features, with some features or some with new features which was included in a CSS2, which was in 1998. Next, in 2005, the proper CSS was introduced, including some effects for text such as drop shadow and web fonts, semi-transparent colors, box outlines, and rotating pages elements. So this was introduced in 2005. This is what the history of the CSS has been came up. Moving next, let's understand some CSS syntax rules. The rules have two parts, sector and declaration. The selector, the external elements you want to add style to, which are like paragraph tag, heading tag, and table tag, and many more goes on. Next, the declaration, the statement of style for that element, where made up of properties and value. Where below you can see that here you can see on a screen which rules goes to selector or the declaration. The selector goes for, like you can see, the P tag. Under that we had used the font family, which is Arial, which are like the font family is a property and the Arial is a value, which is a declaration. With the combination of this all, the entire CSS syntax rule creates up. Moving next, we see some more syntaxes. If you see here, which has been described in more, the selector for h1 tag. H1 tag is a selector and the rest of things is a declaration, which the first under the flower bracket, the color is a property, the colon, then the value of the color, then we give the colon for the separator, then the background, which is an again property, again the colon, which is a, then the value of the foreground, for the background. So this is like how we write a syntax to a selector or any any tag. Moving next, let's see what type of CSS we use. First, let's understand what exactly the type of CSS we have. One is inline CSS, then it goes, next is an internal CSS, then it is the external CSS. Now let's understand what this inline, internal and external CSS means. Before moving next, everyone should understand what this CSS has came up, like how it has been, why this three type of CSS we has. First, understand what is inline CSS. Like everyone knows, every style content is in HTML element. Like it is used for a limited sections. Whenever our requirements are very small, we can use inline CSS. It will affect only single element, but there is a lot of time consumed with that, and it is not the best practice for a good programmer, and the code will be quite large and very complex. Like if you see over on the screen, there is a screenshot of a file name which is html page1.html, where in this program you can see there is a HTML tag, head tag, title tag, then, then we have a body tag, and then the HTML clause. If you see, the inline CSS has been written in the body tag, like the selector which is h3, then it goes on. Then you can see the message which this is a test CSS which has been written in the h3 tag. Therefore, h3 tag, it has its own properties, but we are going to change some properties for the h3 tag, which you will see the output like this. Now, if you see the output where the background color is green, which you can see the background color which has been given a green, then the font we used is Arial. Rest, we have not written anything much more over here. So the text which we displayed, we had applied some properties for that under the h3 tag, which is known as inline CSS. The CSS whatever you write inside the tag is known as inline CSS. Moving next, let's see what internal CSS means. Like if you have seen on the screen, you can see that the definition, the style of CSS is specified in the head section. It affects all the elements in the body section. Now we had seen, like in the previous screen, we had written the inline CSS inside the h3 tag, right? Over here, now you can see that on this screen, on this program, the CSS which has been written inside the head tag with the help of style again, then the body, the font family, then the color and the background color. Now we can see we have to use the help of the p tag which is color and a blue. Then we have to close the style. When the head close, then we had written inside the body, we had written h3 tag, just the h3 tag, then the text what we needs to be displayed on a web page. That is, this is a test CSS. Then the body close, then the HTML close. Then you can see the output of the written code, which is the background is yellow and the text is, this is a text CSS, which is the font has been changed, the font of the color is red, then the background is yellow again. So this is the entire style or the entire property which we have written into the head tag. So moving next, we have external CSS, which is a third CSS. Here you can learn generally External cascading style sheets are used whenever we have many HTML attributes and we can use them as required. There is no need to rewrite the CSS styles again and again in a complex body of HTML. They inherits the property of the CSS file. There are two ways to create a CSS file. The first is to write the CSS code in Notepad and save it as a as a .css file. The second one is to directly add the style sheet in our Solution Explorer and direct Visual Studio to use it on our own HTML page. So this is an example where you can see a external CSS has been written with the new file which was created .css, which has been saved as a .css in the same notepad file. For example, take a new file into the notepad and write your CSS and save it that file with the file name .css. Give your file name, then change the extension to that .css file as you used into the old CSS itself. Then save it to the folder, then call that or link that CSS file to the existing document into the HTML, which we had used here in the head tag. You need to call that or you need to link that with the help of href tag, then your mystyle.css, then there we need to show that what is that, then it is a style sheet. This style, what we had written into the external style sheet or the external style file, which will apply to the content over here for h3. Sorry, oops. Then we can see that the output of the CSS. Going next, we'll see some CSS style example. Here, the selector I want the text color of my paragraph to be red and the background color to be black. Right? So to do that, we had written in the head, we had written B flower bracket open, then the font family, color red, background color black. Then the style close under the head. So under the body, we had used the P tag, then the B, which stands for bold, write a welcome. Now, the P tag we had used over here and we had closed the P tag. Under next, we had closed the body. If you see the output of this program at the right hand side, which is welcome, the welcome text is into the red, which we had set that into the style sheet. The color should be the red and the background or behind the text what we used it is wherever the paragraph is, it should be a black. So the property what we had written into the style sheet has been applied for the P tag. So this is a simple example where you can see that. Moving next to the CSS3, this was till here it was the small introduction, small history about CSS. So moving next, we'll learn what is CSS3. So this is an introduction where here the several new functionalities have been added in CSS3, which has been split into modules. Then it contains the old CSS specification, which has been split into smaller pieces. In addition, new modules are added. Then we'll see some important CSS modules are selector, box model, background and border, image value and replace content, text effects, then the 2D, 3D transformation, animations, multiple columns layout, then the user interface. Let's understand in depth more. Here, now we have something like CSS3 gradient, which is in a property under the CSS3. Here, with CSS3, we can use gradient effects in our document, for which earlier we had to use image. Like everyone knows, to do so, we need used to use the image, the patch of the image, then we need to extend to the x-axis or the y-axis under the with the help of the CSS under the HTML itself. But to avoid this, this I can say this is a new feature where the CSS3 gradient has been implemented. Now the use of this is it reduces download time and the bandwidth usage. Gradient is generated by browser. It's of two types. Like everyone knows, again the gradients are many types like linear, radial, and goes on many of them. Then let's understand we have the two types which are linear gradient and the radial gradient. Linear gradient goes down, up, left, right, diagonal, but the radial is defined by the center. So moving next, here is an example. This is the default for top bottom. Like to make it gradient, we need to use this standard syntax, which is like hash grad is a short form of gradient, then the upper bracket, under that background, linear gradient, the color, define the color, what color you need, write the color, the standard color names, or give the values of your color, which could be hexa with the hash or without the hash code. Then the close the syntax. For different browser supports, we need to specify the specific for them. So not all browsers support the same syntax. To do so, for Safari, we need to write this code. For Opera, we need to write this code. Then for Firefox, we need to use this code, this tag or this syntax under the CSS. Then close it, because writing this all syntaxes will support the user who opens the web page, maybe in a Safari or the Opera or the Firefox or the Chrome, maybe anyone. So to do that, to avoid that multiple errors, we make the standards to write the syntaxes for all the browsers. So if any user opens the website, then it could support with the help of this code. Moving next, we'll understand what is CSS3 text. Under that, we have a text effects where CSS3 contains several new text features, which is text shadow. To make a text shadow, you can write this syntax. For h1 tag, under that the h1 tag should have a shadow, which is a text shadow 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, then the color. So with the help of this tag, this syntax, we can give the text shadows. Then we have a word wrap. The same word wrap, then the break word. So we can break the words to make it word wrap. Moving next, CSS3 contains several new text features. There are following text properties: text overflow, word wrap, word break, text. To know that, now the text overflow, this property specifies how overflowed contents that is not displayed should be signaled to the user. Example, here is a syntax. There are two types of syntax where for text1, p.text1 and p.text2. You can take a look and you can go through it with that. So moving next, so the output could be like this. Next, we have a CSS3 border feature. In CSS3, we can create rounded borders and show shadow to boxes and use an image as a border without using a design program like Photoshop or any other design tool. In CSS3, the following border properties are border radius, box shadow, border image. So what is border radius? Adding rounded corners in CSS2 was tricky. We had to use different images for each corner. So to avoid this, this is one of the greatest feature in the CSS3. Creating rounded corners made easy. The border radius property is used to create rounded corners. Let's see how. So for border 2 pixel solid, then border radius 25 pixel. So uh, this is for 25 pixels is for all around all the corners. Imagine there is a box with the 4 points for the 4 corners, which makes a 25 pixels for the radius. Then if you want to make it a single for the 4 rounded corners within a different radius, then give it in different values like 25, 20, 25, 25, or as per they are the 4. Then close it. Next, we have box shadow. In CSS3, the box shadow property is used to add shadow to boxes. For example, box shadow 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 5 pixels, then the color. So to make it box shadow, the shadow will be on the right side now. If you put like this, see the output. The shadow is at right side, 10, 10 to the right side, and the 5 at the bottom. That's the color of the shadow, which is like hash 888888. You can change your shadow color to any color. Then the third is background size. The background size property specifies the size of the background image. How? Like take the background syntax URL, then the image name .zip or PNG or JPG. This is the background size. Give it the size for it like height and width. Then the background repeat, which is no repeat. If you want to repeat it, say repeat. Then moving next, we have a text CSS3 transforms, which is CSS3 transforms allows you to translate, rotate, scale, and skew elements. CSS3 supports 2D and 3D transformations too, which is like CSS3 2D transform. It has following 2D transformation methods. You can take a look, which is a transform, which is a translate, rotate, scale, skew x, skew y, and the matrix transformation. So these are some syntax which you can use for transformation. For example, div open bracket transform translate 50 pixels by 100 pixels. Then again transform, you can further rotate, again transform, make it 20-degree rotation. Next we'll see what CSS3 for 3D transformation. It has following 3D transformation methods like rotate X and Y, X axis, Y axis, then they rotate Z axis, which gives the 3D look. For example, transform, rotate X 150 degree. To make it 3D, you can give the accurate values. You need to play with it, which has been, for the example, like rotate 30 degree, translate 50 pixels by 100 pixels, then scale to 2 to 4, then scale 30 degree by 20 degree. We can add an effect when changing from one style to another without using Flash animation or a JavaScript. CSS3 translation excuse me. CSS3 transactions are effects that let an element gradually change from one style to another. Where you can see the example, a div open bracket in the transition delay should be 2 seconds, where the div h over width should be 300 pixels. CSS3 transactions, it allows you to change property values smoothly from one value to another over a given duration. To create a transaction effect, you must specify two things. One, the CSS property you want to add an effect to, then the duration of the effect. For example, which you can see over here. At the right hand side, you can see there is a small red box, and then on the hover, it needs to be transaction from left to the right. Moving next, we will learn here the CSS3 multiple columns. We can create multiple columns for laying out text like in newspapers. We have seen many ways for the newspapers like brochures and many more. In CSS3, the following excuse me. In CSS3, the following multiple column properties are column count, column gap, column rule. So below is the example where you can see the syntax for count, gap and rule. So let us move next. Now CSS3 user interface. In CSS3, some of the new user interface features are resizing, elements, box sizing and outlining. So below you will learn following are user interface properties, which are resizing, box sizing and outlining offset. The resizing property specifies whether or not an element should be resizable by the use. Box sizing property is using to change the height and the width of element. Outline offsets on outline and draw it beyond the border edge. So let us see in detail of each. Resizing. This resizing property specifies whether or not an element should be resizable by the use. Example, you can see the border, padding, width, height, resizing. from both sides and the overflow. So this it should be used for resizing. For outline offset, it offsets an outline and draws it beyond the border edge. For example, we use the border, outline, outline offset. Next, CSS3 animation. CSS3 animation allows animation of most HTML elements without using JavaScript or Flash tool. An animation lets an element gradually change from one style to another. To use CSS3 animation, you must first specify some keyframes for the animation. For example, you can see so here is some code or example how the animation code has been written. Take a look on this and go through this. You'll get to know how the animation has been used with some syntaxes under the tags. Let's move next. So the output of this code you can see at the right hand side. The red color, then the yellow, the transaction from red orange to the yellow color goes on. So you can try by your own. Next, let's understand some advantages of CSS3. First, compatible with older versions. Designers won't have to give up all their previous work with the predecessors of CSS3. The new language can be reworked on old models too. However, there might be some speed issue during the conversion. Second, simple and independent. Unlike CSS2, which came as one big package, but CSS3 is made up of small modules which make the application easier and simpler to use, like selector, color, box model, background and border, text effects, 2D, 3D, transformation and user interface are some of the most useful modules that CSS3 offers. Next, view and change friendly. Since it is broken up into small modules, it's simpler to change the part individual without massively affecting the other components which don't require any major changes. Another great advantage is the fact that it is compatible with all kind of platforms and can be viewed with similar easy in modules as well as PCs and tablets. Then fourth, next PD development. Being an independent language which is not dependent on JavaScript, CSS3 loads a lot faster than its precursors. The language is pretty well compatible with all the browsers available. The individual modules are help in saving a lot of time during the development, implementations and end of production. Then the fifth is platform friendly. CSS3 is compatible with all the platforms or devices like mobile, phone, tablets, etc. Then the last, compatibility. Nowadays, every modern browser supports. Let's understand some features, the new features in CSS3, which are selectors, like as I explained in the previous slides. In short, will allow the designers or developer to select on much more specific level of document. Then there next, text effects and layouts. Changes um, changes to the excuse me making changes to the hypertension, white space, and justification of text in the document. Next, first letter and the last line, the code classes. It should allow properties to affect the kerning and alignment of drop caps. Then the next, paged media and the generated content. Will not support more options in paged media such as running headers and the footers and the page number. Multi-column and layout. And there is another feature is the multi-column layout working. Another feature is multiple column layout. The multiple column layout working draft towards properties to allow designers to display their content in multiple columns with definitions like the column gap, column count, and column width. And the last is Ruby. CSS will now supports the ability to add small annotation on top or next to words, most often used in Chinese and Japanese. They are generally used to give the pronunciation or meaning of difficult ideograms. So these are some new features which are invented in CSS3. Now let's understand the difference between CSS and the CSS3. If you see on the screen, there is a comparison basic, the second column is CSS and the third column is CSS3. There, for compatibility, CSS1 is not compatible with CSS3. CSS3 is compatible with CSS1. A responsive design. In CSS, it does not follow the responsive design, but in CSS3, in responsive design. The web page of the website adjusts the page size and the components according to the size of the devices, and CSS3 provides this feature. Now, going next, which is a multiple background. CSS has to use the third party for the multiple background, but the CSS3 under itself, we can use the multiple background feature. Then modular base code, which is CSS does not follow the modular base code. It uses its all specification direction, but in CSS3 uses all the old specification of CSS, but all the specifications are divided into different models. That's how CSS3 approaches the model coding. Now coming to the end, let's conclusion. This revises on the conclusion for the entire topic, which is the smooth transaction, clean design, faster performance have brought CSS to the place it is today. CSS can be used for all web application development. Now CSS3 now supports all browsers and hence it is used all over. CSS3 is all available for all current users with a small improvement in the present framework. Cascading style sheet is hence going to stay in the software industry and help users to create interactively and the more styling web application page. So here we had done with the CSS3 lesson.